Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about my plans to retire by 30. So before we begin, if you could hit that like and subscribe button, that would mean a whole lot to me. So ever since high school, I've read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and he makes a really good point of the average American retires when they're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. But wouldn't it be better that if you could retire when you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, when you're more in the prime of your health and you can actually move around? And so ever since I've read that book, that made so much sense to me, and I've been trying to make that happen. And so while the following is more personal perspective, and I don't want to come off as pretentious because I understand I've had a lot of opportunities in my life that others may not have, I do think that this video is something that I still wanted to make so that others could at least have the financial information to perhaps make their own financial plan. In terms of an overview, there are 4 main points that I want to talk about. The first one is going to be about why do I want to retire by 30. The second one is asset growth and the 4% rule. The third one is the types of retirements I've been looking towards. And the fourth one are some other options that I've been looking towards in terms of growing my assets or in terms of other alternatives. So onto the first topic, why do I actually want to retire by 30? And I think it comes down to the idea that I want to buy back time. If I want to come back home and see the person I love, to go out on adventures with friends, to just go traveling around the world, I need to have money in order to buy the time to do so. And I think this concept of freedom to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, and to do it because you love it is really something everyone is chasing after. So this is why I want to retire by 30. So in part 2, how do I actually plan to do it? Well, the ability to retire ultimately comes down to how much assets you have and how well you can grow your assets. But how much assets do you actually need? Well, the figure that a lot of people like to use is the 4% rule, and I'll link to a study down below about it. But essentially, the idea is you can take 4% of your assets out every year without affecting your assets growing, and this could go on indefinitely. And so what is the figure that I've come up with? Well, it's about $3 million, because at 4% for $3 million, I would be getting $120,000 a year, which is more than enough for an upper middle class family in California. But in order to hit $3 million by the time I'm 30, you can realize that's a very difficult goal. I essentially need to compress the time from when I'm 20 to 60 all the way down to 20 and 30. So how do I actually plan to do it? And just as a disclaimer, I'm no financial expert, but the way I plan to do it at least is through the stock market. I've been able to grow $1,000 up to a 6-figure account through a lot of savings, through a lot of work, and through a lot of lucky opportunities. But why do I recommend stocks? And feel free to do your own research and formulate your own opinions. Well, stocks tend to have a consistent proven return over the long run. The S&P 500, which is a collection of the top 500 stocks in the United States, returns about 10% per year over 10 years. Vanguard tends to do about 15%. QQQ, a stock that represents the top tech companies in the Nasdaq, has done about 20% a year for the last 10 years. And ARK, an ETF, which while inflated this year due to Tesla growth, before was doing about 30 to 35% a year with their more aggressive choices and portfolio for the last 5 years. And so even if you were to invest with something like QQQ and just essentially buy Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, these companies will probably not go bankrupt and have proven returns of about 20% plus a year. I think so many people are scared to lose money, but if we were to look at even the '08 recession, this is the blimp that you are worried about, and this is the entire future. Long-term investments tend to average out any problem that arises, especially for large companies, and it is an avenue of growth that I've taken advantage of because it is only with time, when I am so young, where I am able to take advantage of this long-term effect. So you can imagine over 10 years from my 20s to 30s, this is why I've been aggressive with investing, and why the earlier you start the better, because you give yourself more time to grow and compound your assets. So the third thing that I really want to talk about is the types of retirements that I've been looking towards. And I think this is very interesting because there's really 2 types that I've thought of. One is hybrid retirement and 2 is full-time. So I think the hybrid retirement is a much more feasible plan. Let's say I don't hit that 3 million figure mark by the time I'm 30. Well, the idea is that instead, as I go from 20 to 30, maybe I can just keep on working and, even past that, and instead take a break every 2, 3, 4 months. But the problem is obviously that unless your company has really good paid time off, you probably would need to support yourself in order to take that 2-3 weeks off every so often. And so I could actually let my assets, cover that 2 to 3 weeks off period that I would end up taking away. And this is a hybrid retirement approach that I think is much more feasible even if I don't hit that $3 million mark. The second option is full-time retirement or financial independence. And this is very interesting, because I've already talked about hitting the $3 million mark, but even if I don't hit that $3 million mark, there's been other options that I've been looking towards. The other options include, just moving to a different city or state where the living expense will be much less. So maybe I don't need to earn $120,000 a year. Maybe, $80,000 a year would be more than enough in another city, in another state where the living expense is much lower than Southern California. Finally are some other options that I've been looking towards for asset growth and other miscellaneous thoughts. So the first thing is, working as a software engineer as a new grad, I'll be earning 6 figures coming out of school. And I think this really showed me what technical skills mean to companies. Personally, I think whatever industry you look towards, you should always be looking on how to scale your actual technical abilities. Whether or not you're in sales or marketing or software engineering, there are probably some sort of skill set that will let you scale your skill or put it into a much higher demand bracket. And I think this is something that everyone should be constantly looking towards, no matter what industry you're in. The other thing that I've been looking towards is, generating a passive income source. And so this is different than entrepreneurship. I think a lot of people think they want to be entrepreneurs. I think that's especially true in the United States, where you just have that culture of hustle. But I think most people are actually looking for a passive income stream, because being an entrepreneur means it will eat up your life. You are going to be living in a life where it is very rigorous, very demanding, and it will be 24/7. Versus a passive income stream, it just deposits money into your bank account every month. And I think this is really what more people are looking towards in order to hit that financial independence and to have that freedom to set their own hours. And so I feel like I'm in a very unique position where I am a software engineer and where I do have this perspective, which means that I'm able to essentially create a business that can hopefully be automated. And so I think that's really about it for this video. That's my perspective on how I plan to retire by 30. Really, seeing why I want to retire, how I'm going to grow my assets, some other retirement plans I've been looking towards, even if I don't hit that $3 million mark. And finally, some other alternatives that I've been looking towards in order to grow my assets, whether or not that's through constantly increasing my skills as a software developer or looking into passive income streams. Thanks for watching this video, and if you guys have any feedback, please feel free to let me know down below in the comments, or any other topics that you guys would like to watch. Feel free to also check out my other videos on the screen.